Well, it's not been a good start to life in the two Bundesliga for us here at Lokomotive Leipzig. We find ourselves second bottom after 4 games played in the league, the worst goal scoring team, the 4th worst defence. Can we pick up our first win today? Hello everyone and welcome to episode 32 of the Leipzig Loko with Lokomotive Leipzig here on Sean Does FM. I hope you are doing well, and coming up today we take on 1860 Munich at home, and then off the back of transfer deadline day we will take on Karlsruher away from home, the team currently on top of the table, and hopefully at some stage can pick up our first win of the season. So if you're looking forward to today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated, but we have just played the one game off the back of where we did leave things at the end of yesterday's episode, that disappointing 3-1 loss at home against Erzgebirge off the back of taking Cologne to penalties in the DFB Pokal. If you missed the episode, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. Going into that game, we did change our roles for our 4-3-3 fluid counter-attack just because it felt like we did need to change something off the back of that disappointing result in that second game of yesterday's episode. So we have gone back to what the usual tactic would be, restored it from the tactical style, so it does mean our midfield a little bit different to what it was otherwise. Most other areas are pretty much the same to what they were before, so hopefully that can give us a bit of good form going forward, and it did help a little bit as we travelled away to take on a Paderborn team who were right up near the top of the table at that stage. We did grab the first goal in this game just past the half-hour mark through Jamal Ziani, thankfully one of our strikers getting on the score sheet. It was for a bad error though from the Paderborn defence, but unfortunately with just under a half hour left we did concede an equaliser. A pretty even game, but against a team like Paderborn I will take a point from that one, and hopefully we can build some momentum from that performance and we can start to pick up some more points against the team next up who are struggling a little bit more in 1860 Munich. Also, we have changed a few backup tactics just in case this doesn't work as well as I am hoping. Of course, we were picking up draws prior with the 4-3-3 fluid counter-attack with some different roles, as well as those couple of heavy defeats which we did suffer to Holstein Kiel, as well as Erzgebirge. Some different tactics now suggested by our assistant manager, so if this doesn't work during the course of today's episode, maybe we change things going forward. But we have also been suggested to use a vertical tiki-taka, definitely a system I do like using and have liked using in previous versions of Football Manager. And I've also loaded a 4-2-3-1 control possession style which I'm using over on Twitch with Montpellier. That does seem to be working very well, that tactical style, so hopefully if we need to use it, that is something we could do as well, and maybe even just change our shape to that 4-2-3-1 anyway with the same style and fluid counter-attack might work with that extra defensive midfielder. It does seem to be quite a meta formation on this year's game, but for now we're going to stick with our 4-3-3 and hope those role changes that we did make going into that Paderborn game work against the team a bit further down the table. Going into transfer deadline day later in today's episode as well, just a quick update on what has happened with our squad off the back of the last few episodes. We have loaned out a few more players. Nicholas Muller, one of our backup goalkeepers who was in the second team, he has gone out to TB Berlin. Also Brad Sweetman, one of the youngsters that we did sign, is off to Wales, his homeland, to join the New Saints. And earlier in the window we got rid of the likes of some of our new signings and Alofs Castanharo, Gaima, Dieter Gaima, and of course Kevin Zizek did leave on a free alongside the likes of Mike Egelzeder. So a few more players that we did sign on free transfers going into this season have left the club to get some game time and also help out our wage bill. So maybe we can make another signing on deadline day, in particular up front, if we are continuing to struggle to score some goals. And in terms of injuries going into today's episode as well, there's none to first team players. Our backup goalkeeper in Matthias Haasmann pulled abdominal muscle, so that's not too big a deal. He'll be back for the second game of today's episode if we need him. But Theo Biddy, a sports hernia, out for 2 weeks, just means that Danny Hermel will take his place on the bench, seeing as all of our first choice players are now fit and available, including the likes of Micah Wusu and our 2 new midfielders. They paired up for the first time in that Paderborn game, so hopefully that will help us turn around our form as well. But coming up today, first up, we do take on 1860 Munich. These guys did have a poor start to the season, lost their first 4 games including their first 3 in the 2 Bundesliga, but have got off the bottom of the table off the back of a 2-1 win over Arminia Bielefeld. So hopefully, despite that most recent win that they've picked up, we can get some points from this game, because I dare say taking on Karlsruher on top of the table might be a tough ask for us, the way that we have been going so far this season. But hopefully those role changes, much like they did early on last season, can help us turn our form around and get ourselves up the table and out of what appears to be a relegation battle for us this season. And we'll come back shortly and hopefully pick up our first win of the 2 Bundesliga season as we host 1860 Munich. And here are the team sheets for this first game of today's episode. As I mentioned earlier, no injuries to our first choice players, so it does mean staying 11-wise. This is our first look at them on camera so far this season. Maybe the only change on the bench is 1860 Munich are going with a 4-2-3-1. We'd probably have Ogbidi there in place of Danny Hummel, even though Hummel has more potential, because it would be good for him to get some more game time down in those under-19s. But with that injury to Ogbidi, it does mean Danny Hummel will have to make his way onto the bench. But as I said, hopefully against a team who up until their last game have been struggling, we can pick up some points for the first time this season. Hopefully a win. Early chance there for Kachala from a ball played into the mixer, but a decent save there from the 1860 goalkeeper in this highlight is going to continue. Ernesto will win that one there. Owusu plays that one back to Heinke. Ball over the top of Tilgen here in a little bit of space just inside the box and inside the byline. Back there for Linus Zimmer. Squares that one nicely for Mike Owusu, his first goal of the season. It's a dream start for us here at home. Hopefully, just like last season, those role changes are going to work for us and we grab an early lead, and hopefully, as you can see there based on the live ladder, it might move us out of the relegation zone, albeit still a long way to go, but it's a good start, and we take an early 1-0 lead. And about 5 minutes off back of that opening highlight and goal, we are now down the other end here for a free kick to 1860 Munich. Thankfully, Linus Zimmer does win that one in the air, albeit plays it out to an 1860 player, and thankfully, good save there from Krapakas. Of course, he is a big lad in goal for us. He gets down nice and low to make that save and put that one wide. Hopefully, we can continue to hold on to our lead off the back of this corner. But Kamenek just puts that one top left, and unfortunately, we don't hold a lead for long, and it is 1-1, and that is a bit of a disappointment. Thought we made a good save there through Krapakas to hopefully keep it at 1-0 in our favour, but that is a very good header. No one stopping that, running that top right corner, and it is now 1-1. And just past the half-hour mark, the next highlight in this game is a free kick in our favour, albeit it is now a chance here for Stefaniak to get something going for 1860 Munich on the counter-attack so far. Looking like the better team based on stats, but of course, yet again, we are still all square with our opposition. A common theme so far this season, playing pretty well, still with this fluid counter-attacking style, but just not putting the ball in the back of net. Another good chance there for a header to 1860 Munich, but thankfully that one goes over the bar, and it is still 1-1, 10 minutes shy of half-time. And that was it for the first half in this first game of today's episode. 1-1, it does feel like we've been the better team, but of course, we can see one of the few chances that the opposition have had yet again. So it is 1-1 off the back of that good start that we did make. Didn't hold that lead for too long. We did also go to a higher defensive line for the last 10 or so minutes of that first half, just to see if that will help. You can see a bit of a surge in the XG, so maybe that is going to help us out. But looking at our players, no one's on too bad a rating, so we'll get things back underway and hopefully can still find a way to grab our first win of the season, locked up currently at 1-1. And around about 5 minutes into the second half, we get the first highlight of it. Here it is, a clearance from the 1860 Munich goalkeeper. Thankfully, Ernesto wins that one in the air, albeit gives it straight back to the opposition. They might get a chance here down this left-hand side, this near side. Through Schulz, puts the ball into the mixer. It's a good chance on the volley for Lokomotive, but thankfully puts that one just over the bar, and it is still 1-1. And up to the hour mark, I think we're going to make our first substitution of the game at this time. Jamal Ziani out there only on a 6.4. Hopefully Danny Lewell can get off the mark and grab us a winner with a half hour left. And just about into the last 20 minutes of this game, still just that one highlight in the second half, and 2 players now are down to red hearts, so both of those will come off. Ricardo Grimm will come on for Kachala, and also will bring on Mark Lamptey for Leon Heinke, still locked up at 1-1. And we've just entered the last 15 minutes, still looking like the better team in this game based on stats, but a few more players now are down to red hearts. It is our last stoppage as well, so Danny Hummel will come on for Owusu at right wing, and also Vufak for Zimmer out at left back. Our last subs made hopefully we can grab a winner with only 15 minutes left. And we're about to enter injury time in this game. We have put a few more players on more attacking roles in the last few minutes of this one, but unfortunately it doesn't look like it's going to work. As you can tell by those stats, we've definitely been the better team in this game, a lot more shots on target this time, which is certainly encouraging, but still not finding a way to win. And there's been a few games like this now where really we should have picked up some more points at home and we haven't. It is a 1-1 draw, certainly not a terrible result. Could have been worse, but still feels like at the moment we are dropping a few too many points and we are spurning a lot of chances in front of goal. So maybe we need to try and do something on deadline day to try and improve our depth up front, because of course we do only have 2 first team strikers here at the moment, but unfortunately that draw does mean that for now we are going to stay in that relegation zone. And next up for us, we're probably going to be taking on a team who are still going to be near the top of the table in Karlsruher, but before then we might try and strengthen our depth up front on transfer deadline day. And indeed, we have strengthened up that area on transfer deadline day. We have done it through a loan and we have signed for the rest of this season Massimo Manganelli. He is an Italian 18-year-old. Very good deal this for us, not paying his playing wage or his unused playing wage, so it doesn't cost us anything at all. A squad player who will play as an advanced forward, 3.5-star current ability, 5-star potential, has spent time so far in the save at Brescia, but certainly looks like a decent upgrade on the likes of Ziani as well as Danny Lewell. So hopefully he can come here and fire a few more goals in the back of the net for us to grab us a few more points this season and hopefully help us stay away from relegation. But that is our deadline day signing, Massimo Manganelli on loan from Brescia. And he's not going to be playing for a while, as it turns out, because he just got injured for our under-19s. Scored a hat-trick too. Would have been really useful in the first team. And we come back off the back of that very underwhelming deadline day deal in the end, because of course he is now out injured for 4 to 5 weeks, but of course we have just gone through about 2 of those weeks, having got through an international break. We also loaned out a few more players there on deadline day. One of our new signings in Kevin Eisenmenger, he has gone out on loan to Hamburg, and also Finn Speckman from the second team has gone out to Lichtenberg yet again to get some more wages off of our books, and hopefully it means if we do need to strengthen the team during the January transfer window, we might have some money to be able to do that. But hopefully once Manganelli does come back, that might help us going forward, as well as the fact going into the second game of today's episode, we are going to try a 4-2-3-1 with the fluid counter-attacking system. Hopefully this will work for us. It is just the standard roles and duties that the game does suggest. So hopefully this will help us. Having one more defensive midfielder will hopefully shore us up a bit more defensively, and we'll see what Julian Weigl in this case can do in that cam role, because unfortunately it was not just our loanee signing who has picked up an injury since that first game. In today's episode also, Lino Labonte is out with some sprained ankle ligaments. The same injury is out for a similar amount of time, albeit he was only a squad player. But more seriously, Daniel Cueto, who would have been our starter in that cam role, maybe even as an enganche, because I am quite intrigued to see how he would do in that role, and it is one of his better ones. But he is out for the second game of today's episode, is back in 1 day's time. We could start him if we really wanted to, but it's a long season. We'll play things safe. He is out with a bruised thigh, so it does mean Julian Weigl will start in that cam role, and Tim Lehmann makes his way onto the bench to be the backup in that area. But hopefully going to a 4-2-3-1 might just kick us into life. As I said, I've used this formation over on Twitch recently with Montpellier, albeit control possession, and it has been very good for that team over there. So hopefully going to a 4-2-3-1, even with a different tactical style, will work the trick here with us at Lokomotive Leipzig. Of course, we haven't been playing too badly with the style. Hopefully a change in formation does do the trick and gets us a few more points to hopefully escape the relegation zone. And currently we are on bottom of the table, about to take on Karlsruher, who did lose their most recent game, so hopefully they're a bit vulnerable off the back of that. A 2-1 defeat away at Arminia Bielefeld, albeit this one is away from home, and with that injury to Cueto, that only makes our task a little bit tougher. But hopefully that change to a 4-2-3-1 does do the trick, and we can pick up our first win of the season, albeit a lot easier said than done, away at Karlsruher. And here are the team sheets for the second game of today's episode. First up, it is our opposition. They are also going with a 4-2-3-1, so they obviously have cottoned on to the idea that this tactic might be a bit better than a 4-3-3, or at least the shape. There is our new look team, obviously, just that one injury to Weigl, as well as our new lone striker, so it does mean Ziani is still up front, and hopefully we can find a way to get off the bottom of the table. And a very early highlight in this game is Karlsruher here, who are in possession on the 2-minute mark, try and make their way into our half and do a decent job. Early player ball over the top there, but thankfully Linus Zimmer does win that one. We head that one away, and Kachala plays a nice ball forward here. It's a bad miss. There's Ziani, does get in behind. We'll bury that one top right corner. Jamal Ziani actually starting to find a little bit of goal scoring form. His third of the season, so not doing too bad a job up front, but ideally would have a bit more depth in that area. Hopefully we'll see some improvement when that lone striker comes back from his injury, but it's a bad miss there from O'Shaughnessy, and again, we take an early lead. Hopefully this time we can hold on to it for 90 minutes. And just past the 15-minute mark, we get the next highlight in this game. It is a goal kick here to Karlsruhe. They pump that deep, Search wins that, then Tilgen heads that down to Weigl, but unfortunately lose touch, albeit Leon Heinke does well to disrupt, and now Ernesto on the ball, but for some reason doesn't look to his outside and plays that downfield for Custon, albeit has to come a long way outside his box, but unfortunately we do not close him down early, so we can't make the most of him being out of position, and now it is Karlsruhe who are on the ball. I'll be a bit ticked off here if we do concede off the back of that rather random effort there from Ernesto. Not too sure why he didn't look for what I assume would be a Wusu on his outside, but they now have the ball in the mixer and forces a good save there from Krapakas, and thankfully that bit of play there from Ernesto doesn't prove too costly, and we are still 1-0 up. And we go just past the half-hour mark for our next highlight. It is again a highlight potentially in favour here of Karlsruhe, albeit we deal with that corner initially. Now Zupanik puts this one far post. Palulu beats Ernesto in the air, but thankfully that header goes over the bar, and we cling on to our 1-0 lead. And that was it for the first half in this one. A tricky away game it looked like on paper, and thankfully at the moment the 4-2-3-1 is kind of working. We are 1-0 in front, albeit certainly not playing as well as we have based on stats compared to the 4-3-3, but I don't really care because we are in front, and that's all that matters when you are bottom of the table. Everyone out there at the moment is on a decent enough rating. Of course, we are winning, so we're not going to make any changes just yet. We'll get the second half back underway with a rare 1-0 lead. And we've just made our way past the hour mark. We are still 1-0 in front, despite the fact that based on stats, we are definitely the second best team in this game. But Leon Heinke has just picked up a yellow card, so we're going to take him off for Mark Lamptey, and also might make a few more subs while we are here, because a few other players are on a 6.5. We have Alexander Stankovic on that rating, so Daniel Hindu can come on for him, and also Osman Tilgen's on that rating, so we'll bring on Anton Bullen. That's 3 of our subs used for around about 25 minutes left, and we are still 1-0 in front. And just inside the last 20 minutes of this game, not too long off the back of that first bunch of substitutions, we do have the ball here. Julian Weigl does lose out briefly, but somehow that finds its way to Zimmer, who gets in behind the defence. Tight angle squeeze that one nicely for the goal scorer in Ziani, but that shot does get blocked, and unfortunately still only up by a goal. Certainly vulnerable here to an equaliser, but at the moment we are in the lead. We might take off here Julian Weigl on a 6.5. Tim Lehmann would be the safe option here. Kind of want to see though what Danny Lewell can do, seeing as he can play as a shadow striker. That could be quite useful at the moment with our slight lack of goal scoring output, and also we'll take off Ernesto on a 6.5 for Eric Vufag. Adjust these opposition instructions to hopefully make sure we hold on to that 1-0 lead. And we've just entered the last 10 minutes of this game, still 1-0 up, so at this time I feel like it's a pretty good time for us here to start time wasting. We'll slow things down, also drop to a balanced mentality, and hopefully pick up our first win of the season. And we're just entering injury time in this one, and it does look like we might hold on here for our first win of the season with only a couple of seconds left, and thankfully all it took was a change in shape, and we do pick up 3 points in a tricky game as well, away at Karlsruhe. Maybe they are starting to go on the decline off the back of that loss previously to Arminia Bielefeld, but we pick up a win off the back of another early goal, and this time don't concede an equaliser straight off the back of that. Not our best performance, certainly based on stats, but thankfully it did appear that even though they have more shots and shots on target, we're a bit more solid defensively with that extra defensive midfielder, and we do pick up a 1-0 win, and hopefully that lifts everything at the club. Things like dynamics at the moment not in the best place, and we'll see what that does to the table, if it will take us outside of the relegation zone. It does for now, albeit not too sure if any other teams do still have games in hand, but thankfully we pick up our first win of the season and it does get us up to 6 points, so hopefully we will be outside of the relegation zone. Indeed we will be, as those were the last games of this match day, and we finally get our first win of the season and jump outside of that relegation zone off the back of an upset 1-0 win at Karlsruher. And back in the inbox off the back of our first win of the season, as you can see, our tactical gamble did pay off. Didn't actually perform that well, truth be told, but thankfully got an early goal yet again, and we do pick up what is fair to say a fortunate 1-0 win there over Karlsruher, and we do end a 5-match winless run, albeit did feel like we played pretty well in a couple of those games, including of course that 1-1 draw in the cup against Cologne from the Bundesliga, but all it took was a change in shape. And maybe this is what we need to do going forward for the rest of the season, and hopefully we can start to pick up some more points over the course of our next couple of games. So I think that will do it for today's episode. We did make a change off the back of that first game of today's episode, that 1-1 draw at home against 1860 Munich, and thankfully picked up a 1-0 win over Karlsruher, which does see us move up to 14th on the table. Hopefully now we can go on a bit of a run and maybe get ourselves a bit clear of that relegation zone. We'll see if that change in shape does help us do that. If you enjoyed today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. I think we'll still come back for some games against teams who are down around that relegation zone with us, because certainly we are still well and truly in a relegation battle. I might take on Arminia Bielefeld off camera, seeing as we want to progress a little bit further now off the back of what has been a bit of a slow start to the season, trying to find our first win in the 2 Bundesliga. But off the back of that, we host Magdeburg, who are now on bottom of the table, so that could be a really big game. Hopefully we can win that one at home like we just did away against Karlsruhe, and off the back of that we might come back and also take on Darmstadt away from home, as they are also in that relegation zone come the end of today's episode. So those could be 2 quite big games where hopefully we can pick up some points and maybe jump ourselves up the table a little bit more. So until tomorrow, for Magdeburg and Darmstadt, thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.
Thought I could do this, life through the sadness. Don't know how